And now we can get started on today's presentation. So today we're going to be talking about building soft skills and social connections. And we have with us today very, very special guests from EduCulture who are extremely experienced, and they're going to share a lot of knowledge and wisdom with you today. Before we start, a little bit about me. My name is Delia and I work with Devant. I am a career coach and an event coordinator, and I am very happy to be here today as your moderator. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat for any questions. And a little bit about Devant. So Devant is a company that specializes in helping international students and international alumni. We have over 25,000 job seekers across Canada, over 500 live experts. We hold events every Wednesday around job search topic. We have a large network of employers, over 30 Canadian employers, and we also hold job fairs and other events. Ground rules. So today is going to be recorded. This session is recorded. I would ask that you hold on to your questions until the Q&A section, and then I'll be monitoring the chat and presenting your questions. And for a list of full of Devant events, please go to our website. And I'll pass it on here.
Thank you, Dahlia. I'm just going to share my particular screen, hopefully, if all things go well. Karen, I might get you to pop that up for me because it doesn't seem to be loading for me very well. Let me try one more time. You know, technology is a great thing when it works, eh? Let's try this again. I'll do what I do with my students. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Good. All right, then let's get going. So I want to just take a little bit of time here. I'm going to back it up here. Karen and I are very happy to be here, and we're very happy to, someone else's screen came in. We're very happy to be here, and we're very happy to have this. It's not a presentation. We call it a webspiration. So these are some of the things that you are going to be seeing with us today. And what we are going to do, like we said, is save the questions to the end, but we want all of you to know that this is just a little wee bit. So we're not going to go into every point in detail. It's an overview, but this is what we do. This is what we do. But again, you know, both of us are professors and both of us are teachers. And we have a lot of experience in this. So I'm going to leave this to Dahlia because she's in charge of introducing us properly.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So I'm going to start with Melanie McBitty. Thank you so much for joining us. Melanie is a veteran educator who has taught an array of subjects, including English for academic purposes, ESL, diversity and inclusion, English, and many other high school and post-secondary level courses. Melanie has taught international and immigrant students from over 44 countries. Wow, thank you for joining us, Melanie. And as you can see on the screen, her wealth of experience and expertise. We also have with us today Karen Strang. So Karen Strang has a background in communication and international relations that has spanned for over 30 years. She offers strategic training sessions at workplaces and educational institutions, focusing on intercultural competency and development. Karen was the director, of international relations at two Ottawa universities for 20 years and has taught college international business and project management courses to international students. And you can see here on the slide her wealth of expertise and experience. Thank you so much for joining us, Karen, and thank you so much for joining us, Melanie. We look forward to today's session.
Thank you for the great introduction, Dahlia. And Karen, you can explain why we do this every session, because it is about soft skills.
Why we do this fun little slide you have right now, it's to introduce ourselves. It's a creative way and a pictorial way to be able to share what we love, what we've done, what our passions are. And so, as you can see, my background has been international education, working with people in various parts of the world. And the things that I love are near and dear to me in the center, and finishing off with my passion and love for my family.
And this is me. And you'll discover throughout this webspiration that Karen and I are very much alike, but we're also different. And that comes, it's okay to be different. It's okay to be from a different culture. It's okay to be yourself. But how do you be yourself and be successful at the same time? So hopefully we're going to help you with all of those things today. So I'm not going to go into everything about me, but as you can see, the left side is more like my work side. And the right side, I love to travel. And that big dude in the picture there is my hubby, Mark. And of course, my dogs are my children. So it's just a fun way that you can see that we're people too, and we have many experiences, and it's okay to be yourself. So we're going to start by, I think everyone on here knows that Canada is a very, very big country, a very diverse country. And it is one of the most, if not the most, multicultural countries in the world. And so it's very important living in Canada that you have an understanding of diversity, inclusion. It's not just about culture. It's about many things, but we're going to focus on that. So I want to make sure that everyone understands we're only speaking in very general terms today. We have much more in our, I guess, our tool chest, but we're speaking very generally. So generally speaking, of course, everybody is different. And that's why I like to put this little map up, because we talk about stereotypes. When I ask people, what do you think when you think of Canada? They say hockey and maple syrup and beer. Well, I don't like beer. I don't drink beer, but generally speaking. So these are some of those sort of cliches or stereotypes, but some of them are true. So as you can see, Canada is a big, big country. Okay, moving on, if I can. So Karen, I'm going to have to get you to put your copy up, because for some reason, again, technology is a wonderful thing when it works, but it won't let me forward. So can I get you to put that up, Karen, please? You're muted, Karen.
The most famous words on online learning. You're muted.
Yeah, exactly. So I apologize. I don't know why my copy isn't working. We have multiple people sharing today, so maybe I don't know.
Okay, so
go ahead, Karen.
I will share screen right now. Can you see my screen?
We can. So if you could just forward along to the map I had up.
Yes.
For those people who just came in, you can read really fast.
Yes, that was quick.
All right. And so part of my experiences include Indigenous teaching in several courses. So I just want to say that for Karen and I, we live in Northern Ontario. She can probably point with her little pointer there exactly where we are. And I just want to be grateful that we are on the lands of the Anishinaabe people of the Robinson-Huron Treaty. Go ahead, Karen. Let's talk a little more, because we're going to have a little bit of fun here. So most of you may know what an icebreaker is, but this is common in Canadian culture at a meeting, in the classroom. We had a little bit of an icebreaker at the beginning when you chose your Canadian name, but we're also going to do, how much do you know about Canada? So just a really quick little trivia. If you would go to the link in chat and you are going to answer some questions. So we'll give you what, Karen, maybe we're not going to give you a lot of time. So don't try to Google them. Don't try to do anything like that. Just answer them. So I think we'll give you like 2 minutes. That's it. 2 minutes.
And there's
So
5
again,
questions.
yeah, there's only 5 questions. And, you know, some of them may be obvious. Some of them may be more difficult. But part of soft skills, no matter where you are working or where you are going to school, is to know about your environment, to know where you might be working or who those people are that you are working with. It's really important not to take things for granted and think you know, but I tell my international students and new immigrants to Canada all the time, don't listen to what somebody told you, you know, your friend or someone in the supermarket. Find out for yourself. Make sure you have the accurate information. So Karen, how's our Mentimeter going?
I'm going to ask Delia if she can check on it for us and see if we've got some responses there.
I'm going to say we have less than a minute.
Things are going well. I'm getting some responses, but I need more of you to put in answers. So I'm going to reshare the link for the mentee and let's give this Canadian trivia a go.
And just try. Again, that's another thing in Canada is overall, it's better that you participate and try than to sit there and be silent. People in the workforce, especially employers, want to hire people that they know are going to fit in, that they're going to fit in the work environment. And very different from especially some Eastern countries is your boss will be right in there participating with you, but they want people that will participate and give their ideas. So we're going to check on this Mentimeter and see how people have participated, because this is also a little test. Are you willing to jump out of your comfort zone? So Dahlia, I think we can just put them up and see how we did. This is not a long activity. It's just sort of get people thinking and their brains working.
So here's what we have. First question, capital of Canada. Most people got that
Dahlia,
one.
I think Karen has to stop her share because it takes too long to load when 2 people have shares. Okay, there we go.
There we are.
And that's another thing, just go with the flow, right? Go with the flow. Okay, so I will, as you can see, the correct answers, right? The capital city of Canada is Ottawa, right? We have lots of times people answer Toronto, but that's the capital of the province of Ontario. Okay, the next one.
Unfortunately, we don't have answers for the next one.
Maybe some people did not know what lacrosse was. Lacrosse is like a stick with a basket and a ball, and it was actually invented by the Indigenous peoples of North America. So basketball was invented by a Canadian, but it wasn't, you know, it's not our national sport. Our national sports are hockey in the winter and lacrosse in the summer. Okay, next question. Which of these weird traditions is observed in Canada? Believe it or not, all of those exist in at least one of our provinces or territories. And I'm sure you're wondering about the human toe, but I'm going to let you find out for yourself. And I'll tell you, it's a territory in Canada.
Hi, am I audible?
We all don't do that, though. I just want to let you know, all Canadians don't do all of those things. Okay, next one.
Hi, sorry to interrupt, but the question, the first question was visible to us. Post that, no question showed up. It just says, please wait for the presenter to show the next slide.
Oh, okay, because
Yeah.
I can see it. I can see the slide. Dahlia, do you want to maybe reshare? Thank you for letting us know that.
Absolutely.
No worries.
No,
So-
that's good to know. Thank you for participating.
Mhm.
Okay, so there was slide 1, the capital of Canada's Ottawa. Number 2, hockey and lacrosse. Number 3, I said all of those things, but you know, every Canadian doesn't do that. It just happens to be maybe like a cultural tradition in a province or a territory. And Canada has one official bilingual province. Again, where are our participants on this? And many people, even Canadians, will say Quebec, but that is not true. Quebec is French. New Brunswick is the only official bilingual province with English and French. And our last question. Yes, Justin Trudeau is our current prime minister. Lots of people seem to know that. For some reason, lots of women in the Philippines go gaga over Justin Trudeau. Pierre Elliott Trudeau was a prime minister of Canada. That's his father. There is no such person as Pierre Poutine. That is a made-up name. And Jean Chrétien was a former prime minister in our Canadian history. Okay, so thank you, everybody. And probably there was, you know, we didn't give a lot of time for that, but just a little warm up to get your brain working. So we'll continue with our soft skills. Okay, and so as you can see, we're going to talk about etiquette, and I'm the deliverer of blunt news to you, okay? And Karen, we can see your slides at the bottom for some reason. I'm going to be the deliverer of telling you like it is, telling you what people don't want to say to you. And the reason why I thought this was so important is I have been teaching international students, new immigrants to Canada for more than, I'm going to say 20 years. And I'm always the one that says, did you know you shouldn't do that? Did you know that that's rude? Or did you know that's not good in our culture? So I thought, well, we just need to include this in our soft skills. So I'm going to be that person. I am going to tell you point blank, there's an expression. Okay, let's go with some things then. So I'm sorry, excuse me, right? Very, very Canadian, always saying I'm sorry. So I decided to divide this up. Karen and I went through and we talked about all these things that we're always trying to let people know so that they're not embarrassed. Who wants to be embarrassed, right? Or who wants someone going, maybe they're not going to fit into our work culture. So here we go. I'm going to start with sight of our 5 senses. And again, these aren't all of them. These are just a few. Again, Karen and I go through this in great depth in longer training. So this is so important, is time. And I'm always saying to my students, be here on Canadian time. Time is very important in Canada, not just for work, but for social functions too, right? I know I went to Chile and you're there, you know, if they say 7, you get there at 10. That's not it in Canada. You should be about 10 to 15 minutes early. How you dress, and that doesn't mean you have to give up your cultural dress, but it means you have to dress for success. It means you have to evaluate the climate you're in. For example, when I've gone to job interviews, I go ahead of time and I see what everybody's wearing. And then I dress up just a little bit more for a job interview. And this is really, really important because a lot of people don't realize that experts calculate 70 to 90, that's 93% of our communication is body language and facial expressions. So for any of you that have been worried about your speaking of English, yes, that's important, but how you communicate is really important. Okay, let's go to the next one. So these are some components of communication. And again, not going to go through all of them, but these are 8 major things. So I'm sure as you read some of those, I want to say eye contact, because eye contact in certain cultures is rude, right? If it's someone who's older than you, or I know in Indigenous culture, you don't look people in the eye because of tradition and culture. So Some other things, this is where we get down to eating. Eating is a very cultural thing. So there are bad things, right? Like eating with, you know, your hands, or having food all over the place. Or in Western culture, we tend to choose our own food and eat our own things. So we don't take something from another plate without asking for permission. Whereas in Eastern culture, it's a lot of things. And this is one, you know, it's not nice to say, but I see certain people picking their nose all the time. That is not good in our culture. You can do it in private, but don't do it on Zoom, and don't do it on, you know, in public or at work. The other one is phones, and I think maybe this is all over the world, is we have lost our ability to focus on who we're talking to, instead of looking at our phones and like kind of half engaged in the conversation. I know for me, nothing bothers me more than when someone is on their phone when they should be paying attention to the speaker or even me. And the last one, when in doubt, smile. A smile goes a long way in Canada. And it's perfectly okay in our culture. Now, here's one that Karen and I have had to speak to people about. You may be surprised to hear that the scents, smells in the workplace, at school, in public places is not allowed. Certain cultures like to wear their perfumes and you know, aromatherapy things, all those kinds of things. You will often see this sign that says no scents is good sense. And you can see the play on words, right? So not allowed. Also, depending on your culture, the smell of your body. So that's why I said it's personal in Canada, so keep it personal. So in other words, you want to make sure that you have fresh breath. You want to make sure that you put your deodorant on or something so that you don't have body odor. And, you know, I hate to tell you, but some people actually fart, which means give out gas. So again, make sure your breath is good, make sure you don't stink, and make sure you don't fart in public. Okay? And you might be going, well, some of these things are obvious, but believe it or not, for some cultures or some people, it's not. The other thing I want to say about smell is in Canada, we have a lot of smoking restrictions. You're not allowed to smoke in certain places. And I'm one of these people. There's nothing that prevents me from talking to someone than someone who is smoking and blowing smoke in my face. And also, you have to be careful, and Canadians have to do this too, is that if you are working or going to school and it's a public area and you heat something up in the microwave or you open your container, you want to make sure it's not stinky. So some of those things are like fish, garlic, onions, heavy spices. So you want to make sure that you're aware of what these things smell like, because they may not occur to you, but to different people, they can smell them. I'm going to move on to the sense of sound. So some good things that you should be doing is saying hello, saying please and thank you, engage in small talk. We have all kinds of things to teach about small talk. And it's okay to clap if you like a performance or a presentation, as long as it's a happy subject. Now, some things that you shouldn't do. This first one is a common one because it's okay in other cultures, is they might say, what religion are you? How much money do you make? We talk about American politics or world politics all the time, but usually you don't ask a Canadian what party they like or who their politics, unless you start to know them really well. This is a big one, and I'm sure Karen will nod her head. Eating loudly, right? Do not do that. And again, in some cultures, that means the food is good, it's delicious, but we are a quiet eating culture usually. And I always say to people, just because you see some Canadians doing it, doesn't mean that it's polite or proper etiquette. Do not spit and make throat noises, right? Right? That drives, I know where I work at our university and college, that drives us crazy. It's so impolite and rude. Some cultures speak during a movie, right? And that's not good here. Speak while someone's presenting, or speak or yell, or like make bodily noises. I already talked about farts, but also burping, right? Blech. So don't do that. Okay, let's move on to our other sense. So this is really, really important, is personal space. And for a lot of reasons, whether it be cultural or big populations in big cities, people are used to like touching people and, you know, talking right in your face. But in Canada, we don't like when people talk into our faces, right? We need personal space. So here's a little guideline. You should think about, in Canada, people like, you know, if you kind of stretch your arm out, that's about a good distance to be away. Otherwise, people are very uncomfortable. And again, people from big populations, they're used to like cramming in there or jumping ahead and getting on the subway. Not in Canada. Okay, so we have a lot of space, right? And I want to tell you one thing that I'm constantly politely telling students, especially in the line in Tim Hortons at my university, is when you see a space in the line, that doesn't mean it's a space for you. It means that people just want more space. So in some countries, people maybe jump in that empty space. Not here. And we line up for things. So, you know, pay attention to where there's a line. If someone isn't moving, then just say politely, oh, are you in line? That's, you know, probably our biggest one, is to make sure we say, oh, excuse me, are you in line? And that sort of is the cue for, are you moving or not, right? Or some people might say, oh, you go ahead. I need to find my money or something like that. Okay, so those are all the things that I sort of needed to tell you the bare facts about. And Karen, you can go ahead to the next slide, I believe.
Okay.
So this is my colleague, Karen. She's going to, I did sort of like the more fun and in your face things, but Karen's going to get down to, business.
I'm really serious. Yes, I'm very, very serious about that. As we know, with all the things Melanie just talked about, there's many things we see, hear, smell, you know, but I want you to think of all of that stuff from the perspective of a cultural iceberg. So above the waterline, and you can see here, there's a waterline across. How much of that iceberg is above the waterline compared to how much is below? And the things that are above are the extrinsic things, like, you know, our skin color, what you hear, see, smell. But there's so much below it. And these are called intrinsic traits. And this is based on people's lives, their experiences during life, their family traditions, religions, things like that. Even the concept, as Melanie was saying, of space, you know, to stand about an arm's length away from someone. It's very different in different cultures. And you can't just walk into a culture and expect to know it all. So it's important to ask questions, and you can observe. As we talk a little bit more about communication, we'll get into that. But just want to point out to you again, this intrinsic piece is based on our assumptions, our values, and our beliefs. Now, we've got another fun thing for you. Before we jump too much further, we want to hear from you. This Mentimeter has been set up so that you can respond in short words, like 1 or 2 words, maybe 3 words. So it's a limited amount of space, and it's going to create a word cloud for us so that we can see what the most common responses are to hearing it from you, what your biggest fear or challenge is about studying or working in another country. And you can make that specific to Canada if that's the case where you're studying. or planning to.
And we won't be marking sentence structure or grammar, so
No.
please participate.
So we'll ask Dahlia to keep an eye on the Mentimeter there if she can, and then the same question appears in that Mentimeter. She has put in the chat the link to that Mentimeter, and we'll give you a couple minutes to think about that, only 1 or 2 minutes. What is your biggest fear or challenge that you're currently feeling about studying or working in another country? You may also reflect back. If you already are working or studying here, you might want to reflect back and to think before you came to the new environment, what is your concern? I'm going to allow Dahlia to display the screen, and I'll stop the share then for a sec. Look how it's building. Beautiful. How about- You're muted, Melanie.
Everybody needs, I know it turned off by mistake. Everybody needs to participate. This is practice for the real life here, right? So no one can see your name, so just be honest.
And these kinds of responses you're putting in here helps to further inform the training that we provide through Educulture, which we'll share a little bit about at the end. So we're really pleased to see your responses here.
I see someone put speak like a native speaker. And so I will make you feel a little better. You don't have to sound like a native speaker. You just need to be understood. So that means it's okay to have an accent. You just need to be understood. And in terms of speaking like a native, those expressions, those idioms, those come through conversation and participation. Right? So if you never engage in conversation, Canadians are, extremely sort of polite. They don't want to hurt your feelings. So they're not going to engage in a big conversation with you if you don't engage with them. So I just want to give you that little tip. Those are awesome. Those are awesome things. Many of the same things. Okay.
And that fitting in perspective. Thanks so much for sharing that, Dahlia. I'll come back to sharing a screen now. Can you see that Mentimeter page again? Thank you for confirming. And now that you've shared some of your fears, concerns, and things like that, we thought it would be really helpful for you to hear it from some international students that we know who have experienced this. And the first one we're going to share is Solomon Alexander, and this is about his journey from coming to Canada as an international student to becoming an employee, part-time also while he was studying, I believe, as many students do, and then to his position as a manager. So I'm going to click to the next slide, and you'll be able to hear it directly from him.
While transitioning from my academics to the business role, I realized how important communication is in building relationships. Having a proactive approach in meeting new people and making friends, and also having an outgoing attitude have made me realize has been one of the most successful thing in my professional career as a sales manager here in Canada. All I would say, networking is such an important thing in Canada.
Thank you so much, Solomon. I'm going to advance the slide. We'll talk them again. Sorry, unless you want to hear it again. No, we'll make this information available if you'd
Transitioning
like to
from
hear
my
it again
academics to
later. So I didn't exit quick enough. Okay. Now, so think about it. Communicating. Solomon talked about how communication is so important to networking. And there's many ways that we communicate, by using our phones to communicate with emails, actually speaking on the phone. Wow. Sending emails. Actual face-to-face communication. And we really want to stress how important that is. And then often we're together collaborating with people in meetings and doing that verbally, or like today on Zoom, and using different kinds of tools in order to communicate and learn. So many of you, we realize, may be studying virtually at the institutions that you're going to be with. Some of you will be face-to-face, and then there's a hybrid model. So it's very likely you will be communicating in all of these ways. And that's future. Now, in order to communicate effectively, there are 9 skills. On this slide, I'll go through the first 5. And again, very briefly, keeping in mind, we're just giving you a taste of everything that's involved in the educulture modules at this point. The very important thing is building trust. If there is not trust being developed with that full intent of developing trust, everything else can be lost. So it really is the utmost importance is to develop a sense of trust. And we can do that by active listening. So when someone is speaking, to be very mindful in the moment, listening to what they're saying, and perhaps not just thinking about what you're going to say next, but actually listening and really pulling in what it is they're talking about. Nonverbal communication is also very important, because I could say 2 sentences, the exact same words, and with a different tone in my voice, I could change it. But I could also be looking off into the wilderness and saying, yeah, I really like to be your friend. Or I could really like to be your friend. So think about your body language that you're using. And there's lots of nonverbal communications that are really fun to play with in exercises and activities. Don't hesitate to ask questions. Just think before you speak. Think about what it is you want to ask, and then try to ask it as politely as possible. And be clear and succinct. Sometimes we tend to go on and on as we're trying to explain something, but the more clear you can be and to the point, the easier it is for people to grasp what it is you're asking, rather than giving them a whole wonderful flowery story that surrounds your question or your comment. And the other remaining items in effective communication skills is clarifying and summarizing, for example. But clarify this, you could summarize, oh, I believe this is what you said, and you can repeat it. That's another way. You can reiterate. There's so many different ways, and those kinds of things are covered in components of our training called social-cultural communication training. So hopefully you'll join us and get more of that. Being empathetic. Empathetic is understanding how someone is thinking, not just what you're hearing, but from your heart. So being able to operate with empathy and kind of putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Feedback is also very important. You will find, if you have not entered a Canadian classroom, that professors will expect feedback. This will be a situation not only, they don't want to just hear what you think they want to hear. They want your opinion.
I'm going to interject there, Karen, and say also the workplace. Feedback is a major part of the workplace in Canada.
Definitely. Positive, negative, unsure, but give feedback and be prepared to provide feedback. Also being present. So be in the here, in the now, so that you are mindful in the situation that you're in. And then people will truly understand that you care about what they have to say. Now, the other piece of social skills is actually a component of the concept of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is EQ. Remember seeing IQ, you know what your IQ is. And then in addition to this, there's something called CQ, which is cultural intelligence. And we get into that in further modules as well. But it's important to realize how social skills can affect how you are interpreted and received by others in the situations that you're in. It could be various situations in the community, sports activities, and meeting people in the workplace as well. Often workplaces will hold social events too, and that's important to engage and be part of those social events. And why are these social skills so important? So that you can be considered an excellent communicator. You are able to build relationships with others, and you will be better at managing change. And along with change are situations that you're in, like perhaps you may have conflicts with other people, or you may need to negotiate and work out a different solution, especially from an intercultural perspective, because what you're doing is looking how you look at things and how others look at things. And so be a good example with your own behavior. How could you improve these social skills? Learn conflict resolution, improve your communication skills. Again, that's a whole other module on improving communication skills. And you got to be honest. Speak from your heart. Be open and honest. And as Melanie said much earlier, it's easy to say something if you feel confident, but it's okay to try. In Canada, we want you to try, whether it be in the workplace or in school.
And Karen, again, I'm just going to jump in there because everything
Sure.
that you're saying reminds me of one of the bigger things in our word cloud earlier, and that is racism, right? We're not saying there isn't any racism in Canada, because there is. And however, sometimes when people feel racism, they go more back into their shell and they don't want to participate or speak out. And what I say to people is it's your job to dispel that stereotype of whatever that person exhibited racism. You know, if you wear a hijab, maybe they have a sense of the hijab means, you know, that you are oppressed, or you are an extreme religious person or something. So it's your job, you know, when you feel that, somehow work it into the conversation. Or I've said, you know, I've asked many questions of my students because I don't know. Right. So I want to find out for myself. So that also goes the other way too, is if you are putting yourself out there and you dispel some of those racist beliefs that someone might have, and there's always going to be bad people in every place in the world, or racist people, but how do you play your part to dispel, you know, that sort of maybe negative picture of what they have about Black people or Indigenous people, right? So you can also be a change maker, right? I just want to put that in there, Karen, because racism was such a big thing on the cloud.
Yeah, so appropriate. Yes, definitely. And the last point here is learn how to praise others. So this falls into the position like Solomon was sharing his experiences. He's now a manager. So he works with a team of people, and he gives praise when it's earned. So if you are continually giving someone praise, oh, you did great job, great job, great job, and you're not being very specific about it, or you're saying it every day, that person's wondering, oh, what didn't I do well, and what did I do well? They just keep saying the same thing. So then it's not very genuine. So we want
you. It has
you
to be genuine.
Yeah, definitely. So for emotional intelligence, it's an awareness of your own actions and feelings, and how do they affect others around you. It's not just about you. And then you value others as a result of having emotional intelligence, so that you can understand and empathize by identifying with others. Now, think about multicultural teams. We've mentioned at the very beginning how Canada is one of the most multicultural countries in the world. So there are many ways that you will engage in the workplace, classrooms, or even in the community with people who have different strategies for doing things differently, alternative methods. Maybe it's not something you've tried before, but we encourage you to try it. Communication techniques are different, whether you're in group settings, one-on-one, and again, it goes back to a number of the things that Melanie spoke about as far as how far you are in distance away from someone when you're speaking, what is your breath like, and all of those other things that often are unmentionables. So let's do a quick recap here. Some students or employees will share what I wish I knew. Solomon already did that, and we're going to have another little video for you in a moment with several students that Melanie and I have either taught, guided, supported, advised.
And new immigrants and business owners, a mix
Yeah.
of everybody.
Yes, and some were refugees coming to Canada as well, so a variety. And then do this, reflect. Throughout this moment on, the chat will be open for you so that you can reflect on what did I learn today, or jot it down. You don't have to put it in the chat, but you're more than welcome to, because we'd like to hear, what did you feel you learned today? And what would you like to know? Also enter that into the chat.
Participate, engage.
And the Educulture solution, we believe it's called Pi Squared. Pi Squared is preparing for international education and preparing ideal employees through a program that we've collaborated with Devant to deliver. It's called Intercultural Competence for Study, Social Integration, and Work in Canada. So we'll take just a moment to show you the modules, the 5 modules that are in this particular program that we are doing in collaboration with Devant. These are 5 different modules. The first 2 are intended for you to take before you come, but you could still take them as soon as you arrive or begin your study. The next 2, the intercultural competence and presentations and public speaking, ideally would be done during first semester. And during your second semester, the concept of belonging. And that's where we bring ideas that were in the first 4 and really pull it together. Because I think that's what we all want to do. We want to feel that we belong in the space that we're in. And often that's very difficult when you are coming and fully integrating into a new country.
Belonging, but still being your authentic self, still being yourself.
Exactly.
And I just want to put in there, you don't necessarily have to be a student for all of these either. So
no, this is applicable to people in workplaces, volunteering. It could be spouses, perhaps, you're coming with family members. And Melanie and I have often engaged with spouses of newcomers that have come to this location, and we've helped to support them to integrate all of the social integration
and get work through networking. So Karen, let's show them our students and our employees and our immigrants, some of the things they said, not us, they.
Exactly. And here they are. Won't spend a lot of time introducing them, but you can see they're from different locations around the world. Some have come as families, some as individuals, some to work, and some to study. And now I'm going to share the video with you.
When I just come to Canada, so because I didn't know anything, so it was so difficult for me.
I am not so good for English. I need somebody to help me and to explain the story, and then I know what I can do.
What my worries were about, how am I going to be adjusting to the culture and how am I going to live there.
giving us a helping hand to cope with the internal turbulence and everything that was going on.
To be more prepared and more expressive and more approachable towards the Western culture and the Western education.
Many songs, many activities, what to wear in different seasons, what to cook, how to eat, how to be happy in the new country.
You gotta know the culture where you are and all the nuances.
Not only teaching me English as just a language, but also helping me with an overall integration to the Western society.
So much more talent out there that just needs a little push and a little support and a little belief.
I will say, if you wanted to build a future career in Canada, choose Melanie.
This whole edu culture concept is really like helping a lot of international students, as well as like not just the international students. It is for parents' peace of mind.
Thanks.
You're the teacher and the sister and the mother. And
now I'm prepared as a student to navigate this system and to also have a smoother transition into my education.
I just hope through your platform you can do that for many more students and many more individuals. We need to make this place a world of more kinder place than it is.
I hope you enjoyed that little video. And I have this wonderful knack of being able to keep doing it again. Anyway, so, wow, I can't believe the time has flown by.
Oh, it always does. We have so much to say and not enough time to say it.
So this is your opportunity to say something. Dahlia's going to be watching the chat. If you want to put any questions into the chat, she will give us a notification of that. But please do.
Just put your hand up and Dahlia will let you speak.
Don't forget to open your mic. So any questions you might have about some of the material, concepts, ideas, what's in store for the 5 pi-squared modules, whatever you'd like.
Anything on your mind that you think we might be able to help you with?
Oops. We have a question in the chat from Mark. What is the biggest challenge for newcomers to Canada, in your opinions?
Oh, that's a tough one because it's not only cultural, the country you come from, but it's individual as well. So in my experience, what my students say when they, and again, it depends on where you are, because people say, oh, I'm not going to experience culture shock. It's a natural process. So I'll just say at the beginning, and then maybe Karen could add something. She's had many students crying in her office when she was the international director. But I will say immediately, it's the food, right? It's the food, too sweet, too salty, too fatty, and adjusting to your body, getting used to that. And I think also, feeling lonely. When you like, first you're in this euphoric state, yay, I'm here. And then kind of loneliness sets in because you might be shy or you might be afraid to speak to people. And I've had international students in my class. I've taught a special class for international students, not just English, but helping them feel comfortable in Canada. And they've said, Melanie, nobody talks to me in my classes. And my immediate response is, do you talk to them? Right? So sometimes it just takes a little initiation. Hi, my name is Susie. I'm from China. I'm not too sure what the professor said. Would you be able to help me? I think you'll find 99% of the time, Canadian students, Canadian work people, anybody, once they know that you need help, they will over help you probably. Karen? But if you don't ask, if you don't, this is my motto, if you don't ask, you don't get.
You don't get, you won't know. That's right. And a lot of it is the phrases that we use. So often at the beginning of that education experience or even work experience, often Canadians will say, oh, it was so nice to meet you. I'll catch you later, or we'll get together soon. And the international student is sitting there waiting for the phone call, waiting for the email or the invitation to connect. And really what the Canadian person was doing is being polite. But so this is why it's a two-way communication stream. That's when you communicate back to them and say, it was great meeting you, and let's set up a time and a day that works for both of our schedules. Let's open our calendar now. Let's do that. So, you know, you also don't be afraid. You need to be proactive in order to engage in effective two-way communication.
And we have lots of things I know in our community, you know, it's not just through school. We have something called, what is it, Karen? Coffee something, coffee chat, coffee meet.
Coffee chat.
Yeah, it's for business people, but there's also one for students where you just join up for this and you can connect with someone and meet them somewhere for coffee in a public place and just have a chat, right? So if you're in marketing and you want to meet a marketing person, or if you're taking, I don't know, say your majors in, I don't know, science, there's another science person and you just want to get together with someone on campus. So there's all kinds of things, like if you don't ask those kinds of questions, sometimes nobody tells you, right? So do we have any other, speaking of questions?
Yeah, we have one more question.
Sure.
And this is a bit of a different question. And Shubnam is asking why getting Canadian certificate is important for finding a specialized job.
Oh, okay. Do you want to answer that, Karen, or do you want?
Yes, you know, this is the situation in many professional careers like engineering, medicine, very professional designations are assigned to that field of study, that knowledge that is gained in order to get the job in the Canadian workplace. And I assume you're speaking about the Canadian workplace. So often you will find students, and many of them I taught when I was teaching at a local college here. And the students came to Canada to do a postgraduate certificate in business management. So it's a one-year intensive program. They have already completed degrees in their home countries, and many of them had worked very successfully, but they needed to come to Canada to get a Canadian certification. And that 1 year provided opportunities for so many of these students to really integrate into the society, understand how we do things here, which helps prepare you for that job market. So it depends on where you're going and, of course, what kind of position you're looking for, because then you may need to expand beyond some kind of upgrading program and actually proceed in a master's in order to specialize in a certain area.
Yeah, it all depends. And I will say, we're not immigration consultants. We're like, I'm going to put the little, you know, the little tag there. We're not immigration consultants. We're not, you know, professionals in the area of, you know, job market and what credentials you need. But I will tell you, one of the reasons, and the Canadian government is starting to put more opportunities in place of getting your credentials for working in Canada. But one of the other things is Canada is one of the top rated countries for education. And so that spills over to the workforce. So as Karen said, there are certain criteria you must meet to work in certain professions. And, you know, I'll say on a sidebar that if you're coming to be, you know, to study in Canada or to work, what some people don't realize is even volunteering somewhere counts as work experience in Canada. So if they see that you've, you know, say you want to work in a hospital and you volunteered, you know, to be, I don't know, the meet and greet person at the hospital, those soft skills, they get to know your face, they get to know you, they have a chat with you, all of those things, that networking. So lots of people don't realize, you know, even at school, if you you know, you create a club or you're involved in varsity sports or whatever, those all count as experience. And so that's why it's so important, these soft skills. I guess that's maybe a good place to go full circle. All these soft skills are so important in Canada, and we don't pay enough attention to them. And it's not just for international people, it's for Canadian people too.
Oh, definitely.
With all the coronavirus and everything going on and changes with social media is people have lost that person-to-person ability to connect with good soft skills. So I don't know if we should leave it there or if someone else has a question, but
I think those are all the questions we have in the chat. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Awesome. Well, we are just thrilled. In many languages, we wish to thank you for your interest in this and congratulate you on the next steps, the moves that you're making to continue your education and careers. And
you can do it. You can, and you will if you put your mind to it. You can.
I'll leave the closing to Dahlia. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And thank you, Karen, and thank you, Melanie, for this very informative session. If you've liked this workshop, we do a lot more workshops, Wednesday, 7 to 8. Our next one is our career cafe, and then we have an immigration Q&A with an immigration specialist. So if you have any of those questions, please save them July 26th. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Bye-bye.